Good afternoon. My name is Crystal Morris. I'm the Aboriginal Education Coordinator for the University of British Columbia. Today is February 21st, 2013. I'm here at the Indigenous Career Stories at the Diamond Alumni Club, Simon Fraser University, Burnaby campus. Today there will be a panel of 4 speakers, including myself. The storytellers are Miranda Stirling, Dr. Peter Eppinga, and Gerald Bent. An honor to be sitting with such a fantastic group of speakers.
Thank you. I also want to recognize the Coast Salish territory for which we reside tonight as well, and pay respect to the traditional territory. As Deanna said, my name is Crystal Morris. I'm Swiftnik Shuswap from Shuswap Nation from the interior of BC. And also, I come from the Sanishtun Nation off Vancouver Island. I've been fortunate to have 2 sets of parents, Ethel Thomas, as you've met, and Leonard Lazim, and Debbie and Sandy Morris of Sartlet. I grew up outside of Seattle up until the age of about 12. There were 10 of us. When my parents remarried, we became the Brady Bunch. And I was the second youngest in our family. Our family moved to Canada in 1981. It was a culture shock moving from the United States to Canada and moving public schools across countries, including things you never think of. Simple things like the metric and the standard. Up until about the age of 12, everything is standard and standard measurement. Simple things like spelling behavior and the IOUR versus the OR. You don't think of things like that when you're 13 years old. The Canadian history, the American history, I had a tough time grasping those concepts of the Canadian versus the American system. And I felt the racism after I moved to Canada. And it was really tough. It was really tough to deal with the racism and being called names, which I had never been called before. So I began my high school years with at least 25 other First Nations students in my grade and the grade above me. By the time I graduated, there were 3 of us walking down the graduation aisle. It was tough to be in a system and at the same time to be a role model to younger youth. I made it through high school and graduated with my dogwood in 1987. And my mom would say things like to me, if I have to walk you to every class in high school, I will do that. She wanted to ensure that I graduated from high school. So that was enough for me to pull up my grades and do such things to succeed in high school. Of course, I didn't want to be the only student in the history of that high school, a veil of fortune to have my mom walking me to every class, getting my homework list and ensuring I completed all of that and turned in my work. After graduation, I remained close to home in Okanagan College in Vernon. What shaped me to be the person that I am today through high school, there were 2 major events in my life, which I never really thought of because I really had never shared my personal story, my personal career history. And my mom has so graciously helped me put it into perspective. For me, it's not, like I said, not something I have regularly shared. One was the Queen's Candidate program. It was a multi-year dedication to the city of Enderby. The Enderby Queen's Candidacy program at that point in time, in 1986, was in operation for at least 25 years, and there had never been a First Nations candidate that had ever ran or competed in the program. It was a year of balancing my athletics, which I wasn't willing to give up, studying for school, standards set for the Queen's Candidates program, and volunteer hours set up by the Queen's Committee. Public speaking, serving tea, dancing with the elderly with the city of Enderby, speech classes, preparing those speeches and the proper etiquette, fundraising, the list goes on and on and on. Nobody told me how much time I would need to commit each week to be a Queen's candidate. It was not all the glory and the publicity that media has made that out to be. In 1987, after a long year of late night studies, playing multiple sports, I was crowned the Enderby Princess, which I almost dreaded at that point in time. At the time, I was just highly emotional for just completing the year, and now to commit a second year of representing the city of Enderby. What a new challenge and a new line of commitment. A whole new year of parades and pageants, visiting and touring other cities and communities. Dedicating time to my own education and then graduation from high school. It was a busy year, and when things started to slip, my mom would say things to me like, things better pick up, or something's got to give, which usually meant my sports. And coming from a large family, sports wasn't something we wanted to give up in our careers and our family lifestyle. The second event that helped shape me in high school was an event called the United National Indian Tribal Youth, better known as Unity. It was a conference in Denver, Colorado. It began as a contest on our Splatson Reserve that went out to youth band members. I had to write a 1,500-word essay on why I should be chosen to attend this conference and what I would gain from this conference. There was about 1,000 youth from across the United States and Canada in attendance. I was chosen and made the journey to Denver. The part of my journey and life that still positively affects me today. I've reconnected with at least 5 of those individuals or met them again in my personal or professional life. This is where I met my partner from Montana, and he told me, quote, "When I first saw you, you were volunteering behind the registration booth, handing out t-shirts. These are people I would not have met otherwise, who would once again become a major part of my life over this past year." During the conference as well, I volunteered and introduced a Texas self-made millionaire. Today he is still a strong supporter of Unity, and I'm actually working at securing him to come speak to the UBC Youth Circle. I also visited with Miss Indian World, who is now working for Alaska Native Health, Tribal Consortium, and Indian Health Services. The positive influence and impact of the lineup of that week-long event has had a lifetime of positive effect on me. In 1989, my daughter was born and my career was put on hold. In the immediate years that followed, I moved into Washington State, and I began to look at a return to community college. I worked in a local fast food restaurant to support us, and I had the greatest support system in that environment. I will never forget my boss and my first boss and restaurant owner. It is great people like him why I give back and help other single mothers. I received a call to move home and began a career as the office receptionist for our local band in Enderby. It was here that I received a big break in career support. I grew more confident in my capabilities and was given another promotion to learn finances. I moved into data entry and basic accounting functions. As time went on, I moved within various management functions, including management roles such as human resources, housing management, office management, payroll, senior finance clerk, assistant administration. It had its challenges, political, personal, but I always treated everyone equally and fairly. Through all these lessons and self-taught reading with the internet becoming more progressive, a lot of the knowledge that I carried up until that point was self-taught. So in 1994, my supervisor decided that I return back to college, and at that point in time I began a 2-year diploma program through Okanagan College and obtained my business administration diploma. The challenge was, at that time in '91, is a young family. I had married and was building a new home, and at that point in time it was our education coordinator, who happened to be my husband, said that I would have to complete this program in 2 years. So it meant a full-time course of 6 courses each semester for 2 years. Challenging, yes, but I managed to balance my family and education at the age of 25. After 2 long years and many nights of studying, with my daughter proudly by my side, I graduated from college in 1996. Challenges included not only going to class not going to class until my daughter got on the bus at 8 a.m. in the morning, but not beginning my homework until 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. Cooking and cleaning was my responsibility, so everything had to be done so my schooling didn't affect the family unit. I returned to work in the summer months and the reading breaks. At one point, after completing that diploma program, I thought I wanted to go into bank telling management and have a career in bank telling, so I registered for a bank teller certificate so I could work my way up to become a branch manager for the Bank of Montreal. In 1998, my son was born, another life in my life. I returned to work when he was 6 months old. I was in senior management at that point in my career, and by the time my son reached the age of 5, it was decided I needed to return to school once again. So I took him as the health director. I returned to school in 2003-2004 down here at UBC. I took the Aboriginal Healthcare Administration Certificate Program. The program allowed me to work my job and work at furthering my education. Long days at work and nights were spent studying and traveling to Vancouver every 6 weeks. After a long year of working and studying on weekends and traveling, my son was by my side, proudly running around the UBC Longhouse, and my daughter and my family by my side as I graduated from the OCAP program. I continued through varying degrees in my career within the GAN. Administration and including senior management for my dad. At a point in time where things were personally challenging for me, I moved to Washington State and assisted with the Colville Confederated Tribes Emergency Preparedness Plan. We went to be the leaders and presented our plan at the Northwest Area Indian Health Board Consortium, where I presented to representatives from Idaho, Washington, and Oregon. The biggest and successful challenge was getting about 15 program managers from the Colville tribes to agree to work together. I was pulled aside by some of the tribal leaders and said, your biggest challenge was going to be to get the program managers to work together. And I told him, you've hired the right person. I will put the we in team. And that's what we had built together. We built a strong team, emergency preparedness response team. I furthered my career within the tribes and moved into a senior management role as the administrative assistant for the newly created risk management program, which included supporting the risk manager in the areas of tribal benefits, tribal safety, vehicle property, building insurance, and self-insured workers' comp. An overall program budget of about $10 million combined. What helped me succeed there was a good attitude, the ability to communicate and network with tribal members, staff, and outside organizations. In 2007, I moved home, for which was originally an offer from Interior Health Authority, but my band stepped forward and offered to employ me once again as the health director. It opened my door to work for my own community once again. My greatest career legacy was negotiating the new Slutsing Health Center for our community. In addition to that was the networking with the Interior Health Authority employees and building the bridges and the cultural meetings where the medical professionals would come to the reserve The hardest part for working for your home community and health is you know some really critical information about people and their health. People believed in me because I believed in them, supported them, and spoke to them, not at them. I heard their stories and helped guide them, showed them compassion and caring. and sometimes that's all community members want to meet. In 2010, my career took another change, and I worked for the First Nations Health Council as the Interior Governance Liaison Worker, which I worked with the 7 Nation representatives of the Interior and 56 bands, after which I took some time and completed some contract work. It seems that my personal life is changing for the worse. Other opportunities and doors open for me professionally. Change occurs, and I happen to always move in a new direction. Eventually I would apply for work all over the province and take 2 interviews here in Vancouver in the same week, and one was for my current position, which I hold now. Currently I've been in my job for 5 months now as the Aboriginal Education Coordinator for the School of Population and Public Health for the University of British Columbia. My role is primarily for the UBC Circle and the UBC Learning Circle. So a big part of my role is connecting with networks throughout the province. I organize and coordinate speakers to talk and engage with youth and communities via the video conference and Adobe Connect. At the same time, increasing capacity of participation, school districts, First Nations communities, youth band operated schools, and building bridges like we are tonight with other universities and colleges. Part of my duties include bringing speakers like Gerald, Dr. Eppinga, and Miranda to our youth circle to speak to youth across the province. We have the capability to connect to about 90 video conference units situated in First Nations communities across the province. And in addition to that, we have the capabilities of connecting 200 standalone computers via Adobe Connect. And part of what I had to do was increase capacity and develop a program that would meet the needs of the community. So it's community-driven services and speakers, people who the youth want to hear, what frontline workers want to listen to. In addition to all of that is building bridges with Aboriginal organizations like the Friendship Center, which is where I met Elisa Derrick, provincial health authorities, INAC, First Nations Inuit Health. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is the networking. Admittedly, this job has been a lot less about leadership and a lot more about taking control of my life and not being afraid to take the risks and strive for the impossible, looking at where I'm going to go from here. The sky has been the limit, and I've met some really awesome individuals along the way in these past 5 months. And with volunteering, what I would like to say what that's done is sharing our culture with those who want to know our culture, with the doctors and the medical personnel when I meet them on the floor. I'm quite fortunate, the office I work in, I've actually had the opportunity to take some of the international medical students with me to like West Coast Night. And personally, it's not an area that I like to say I'm experienced in, but it's an area, when I say I like to help people, it's assisting people with their divorces, friends and family and community members, people who can't afford to do that system. And when I first spoke about that to a young group of mothers at the Friendship Center, I said I was here to talk about something that, is really hard to talk about. So I've never really personally shared my own story, but if there's any way that I can help other people get through what they're going through, because it's an emotional time, that if I could take you by the hand and walk you through the system, I would do that. I would give you the support that's needed. So that's what I told those young mothers. And assisting people who need financial medical services or have issues. I find there's a lot of people who have challenges with First Nations Inuit health and the services available to them. So it just means I'm still doing some side work such as that. In addition to tax season is coming along, I do a lot of family tax and help people with that as well. If there was a message I could leave you with today, in addition to staying in school and believing in yourself, a great person I once heard speak was Alan Morris. And he's not related to me, by the way. he's an LA Olympics gold and silver medalist. He said, if you have it in you to win, you have it in you to succeed. And also network. Take the time to get to know people. Those networks can help build a career. That's what it's done for me. Don't forget where you came from, and give them the opportunity to take someone by the hand. Spend time and help them. It is actually personally rewarding. I will always be grateful for those who believed in me and helped my career out. My favorite quote is, never look down on him unless you are helping him out. A quote from Jesse Johnson. Culture and support, that seems to be a really common thread amongst about the past 4 youth circles that we've had at the UBC Youth Circle, was that these youth are connecting and wanting to connect and looking for that cultural support, like the Career Center here at SFU. It is a common thread, and I hope we can continue to build on that relationship between UBC and SFU. Learning is a lifelong process, and I am currently taking an online managing at UBC course to be completed over the next year. I'm considering a few other options. Now, being in the world of academia has really had me look at myself and where I am at personally. So, looking at a master's in public health administration or a bachelor's in health administration or a degree in mental health and counseling. Everybody that is close to me seems to have their opinion of where they think I would fit in properly. So it's finding my path as well. And in closing, I heard a great walking enforcer say, Gino, we had Gino on the youth circle. He finished his speech by telling everyone to stand up, reach for the sky, and grab a star. So that's what I'm asking all of you to do, is reach for the stars.
Thank you so much. I couldn't help but think, as I teach literature, one of the things we learn is not so much what's meant in the story, but what we hear. And it seems as though we heard 2 stories there. First, this incredible story of Crystal's life told with a lot of grace and calm. And then the story of the thunder that clearly showed that she had grace through a lot of storms. And I just really honor you for that. I think there's another form of storytelling as well. And before we return to the storytellers, we have the great pleasure of having the Git Hayetsk Dancers here, who are going to join us for an opening.
What? Some giggle, some monarch, go Wilson, got some milk out of Keith Klein, out of Mike D'Angelo Ohio, Kingola to Watko, some milk, Beneco, Vancouver, there what's again, Noxu, Michael D'Angeli, out of Talshawet, out of Togo Lakski. What?
Oh, don't go to now, Nielsen. Don't go to now, get Goetsen. Out of Hayetsk Ocean, or Kostelish, that Shayam. In Samaya, my husband has addressed everyone in the room, by every rank, by every gender, every position in the community. He's introduced himself in our language in Samaya, the language spoken by the Tsimshian, the Nisgat, our Nisgat relatives in the room. And he has also introduced me by my ceremonial names. My husband and I have the awesome privilege and honor of leading the Git Hayetsk Dancers. We'd like to raise our hands to our Coast Salish relatives and thank them for allowing us to take care of this business today in their beautiful and unceded traditional territory. In Samaya, I've also said it's wonderful to see you. It makes my heart very happy that you've all come here today in a good way. Our dance group, the Git Hayetsk, is a reflection of our big urban village here. It's Amix, our big urban village of Vancouver and all the other cities outside of it. We are Tsimshian, Niska, Gitsan, Haisla, Haida, Tlingit, Tahltan, Musqueam, Lillooet, and Anishinaabe. When my nafs and I founded this group, our intention was to stick to our Semitic-speaking nations, but it came in many ways was made very clear that we have such strong ancestral ties to one another that we can't have a closed-door policy based on nation. My nafs, as an example, is Niska, Tzitzawit, Tlingit. What else there, my dear? Is many different nations. Our sun is 9 different nations. I myself am many different nations from everywhere from Mexico to Indiana, Indianapolis, born and raised on my mother's reserve, the Annette Island Indian Reserve in Metlakatla, Alaska. Our community here is very thankful for the opportunity to be able to take part in this storytelling, this very important storytelling event that we've had the privilege to share our stories at for, I think that this is the 2nd or maybe even the 3rd year. One thing that has recently been brought to my attention by a great speaker who I admire, he said, "My teachings teach me that I'm nobody." And that's how he started a discussion. And these words have resonated so strongly with me that this new song and dance that we are in the midst of creating has been fueled by this very short comment. This idea of being humble to the point where we carry a shame of our own accomplishments. Why aren't we allowed to talk about the things we've done in our lives? Why are we talked down to by having pride in what we've achieved? This is why we come here, to share our songs and dances, to uphold the organizers of this event. If the only thing that we are allowed to talk about is not anything in the positive in regards to ourselves, what do we talk about with each other? Our traumas, our oppression, our diseases, our sicknesses. This is why we're here. We support this event because we are moving beyond this. And our hope in spreading this good energy and bringing our down to this is that it spreads, just like these feathers that we're about to bring out, that it spreads beyond SFU, the institution that I'm currently a PhD candidate at, UBC, that it goes to UBC, that it goes across Canada, that we as Aboriginal people can come together and talk in the positive about our own achievements, how we got to where we are. As I know that Deanna knows, Deanna was getting her PhD from UBC when I was getting my master's degree there. We, by doing this, by making our process transparent, we are demystifying the process. This is a strong teaching that both her and I learned from a wonderful Maori educator named Graham Smith. To demystify the process is to make transparent how everyone in this room, no matter how old you are, no matter what your challenges are. I myself am severely dyslexic. I will be the first person from my community to get a PhD. By demystifying this process, we are opening up the door for everybody. And with this, we would like to bring in our Amhalite dancers and begin to spread this very important energy beyond the boundaries of this room, beyond the boundaries of this nation, our nations, and hopefully beyond the boundaries of what is now Canada.
We weren't going to scatter down, but there was a mistake happened. It's not our place to correct, but we're showing that our hearts are in a good way, that we are not taking offense to what has happened to us this evening. So we're going to scatter a little bit of down that's inside the Amalekites to show that our hearts are in a good way, to raise our hands to our Coast Salish relatives for allowing all of us to live, work, and play in their unceded territory, to our wonderful guests, the Oaxism. Thank you for coming and sharing your stories, your hard work, your victories to get you here today. To our hosts, the Oaxism, there is no hard feelings.
As this is an important time to talk about the accomplishments of our people, I'd like to introduce our dancers. Claire is currently getting her law degree at UBC. Kyla will be the second person in her family to graduate from high school. Natasha, our beautiful Git Hayetsk family. Natasha is going to go to school for catering. She wants to specialize in desserts. We're very proud of our young people. While our nieces get ready to come out and share our next song and dance with you, I'd like to take this time to talk to you about our Auntie Heather Pritchard. Our auntie here has retired from 20 years as a physical therapist, working as a physical therapist. The people in her medical facility got together to support her and other workers at her hospital over in Victoria, over on the island, that allowed for her to go to school while working, to go to school at Malaspina, to get her education, to be able to do what she needed to do to serve their community in Nanaimo. We'd like to say how proud we are of our auntie.
It's important to know we weren't going to scatter down just because there's food and other things going on, but we had to show that our hearts are in a good way. We are not a performance group. This is not a show. This is who we are. This is us continuing this unbroken line of our hereditary rights and privileges by bringing out our nach-nach. Nach-nach in our language means beyond human power. They are exercised and personified through our milk, our masks. I make my living here in Vancouver as an artist and carver, and I've had the awesome privilege, responsibility to take our art and act as an ambassador all over the world. One of my second most important days, the first being my marriage to my wife a little over 1.5 years ago. So we're still kind of newlyweds. But the first was my first totem pole raising here in Vancouver. To commemorate that day, I asked a friend of ours to honor my wife's clan, the Eagle Clan, and compose this song honoring our eagles.
bold decision to move here from Kitimat to explore his educational opportunities, his career opportunities here in the big city of Zomics. He's lived here once already, but he's giving it a second try, and we're very proud of him and his courage to make this step.
As I said, we are bringing out some of our knock to honor our wonderful guests here, the people that are sharing with them. And I'd actually like to say, I think it's our knock who is reminding us with the rain, specifically this next being, who is reminding us that we were up, reminding us that he came out to share. Our knock, our masks, we treat them like our little ones, like our young ones. We keep them protected. We bring them out. They need sustenance, they need life, they need love. And so this being, this next one we're going to share is Tamsin. And Tamsin's a Thaimsim spirit. Our family in the back are smiling away because they agree with the rain. The rain, Tamsin was causing it to rain and get louder. He wanted us to pay attention. So we're about to be visited by this Thaimsim spirit, this trickster spirit. His favorite form is that of raven. He represents the very best of us and the very worst of us. He is human personified. So we're about to be visited by raven in all of his beautiful shapes and colors. I forgot to mention, sometimes Tamsin's a bit of a klepto. Thank you. When a knock comes to us and touches us from the spirit world into this world that we're in now, it's a blessing. So I raise my hands up to you. Thank you for being a good sport. To all of you, thank you for allowing us to share just a small portion. It's our absolute joy to open. We hope that you've enjoyed a little bit of what we shared. We'll be back to close, but we won't be wearing a regalia for a specific reason, which we'll share with after. But Oaxism, thank you. We look forward to hearing your beautiful stories. Oaxism to all of you. Hayetsk to our Coast Salish relatives for allowing us to be in your territory. Oaxism.
Thank you very much to Michael D'Angeli for the teachings, and to Mikola Askren D'Angeli for her wonderful words. Wow. Please, those of you who are standing not feeling comfortable, just come right on in and fill up the place. We really We're really off to a wonderful start, and such a supreme honor to have the Eagle down here. Really very touched. Next, please join me in welcoming Peter Eppinga from Haida Nation.
My Haida name is Ot Gulas, that means Golden Eagle, and I just want to acknowledge the Coast Salish Territory people here who have allowed us to be here, and I thank you for the dancers who was here. The drum makes me come alive, it gets all of our senses going, it makes me feel proud of who I am as an Aboriginal person. The Haida Nation, I don't know if you guys know where that's from, but most of us usually do. It's on the northwest coast of BC. And we have been there for a very, very long time. We used to build 100-foot canoes with cedar trees and travel all the way down to the Pacific Ocean and all the way down into the Hawaiian Islands as well. They did some DNA testings, and it's just so good to be here. It's good to be here with everybody, with Crystal and Gerald and Miranda. And we aren't here to brag about ourselves. We're not here to impress anybody. We're only here to impress upon you what Aboriginal people can do when we know who we are and where we know where we come from. And so it's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to become a medical doctor since I was a little kid, since I was like 5 years old. And I had a good experience with one of our family doctors, and he just had like a Save Our Trees shirt on, but he was so nice when he spoke to me that I said that I want to become a doctor to my mother. And your mother and your father have a large and a big influence on our lives, because many of us have had, some of us have had mothers and fathers who didn't speak well into our lives. But my mother and father always, in my family, in my community, spoke well into my life. They didn't have any, I call them ants in our head, and those are automatic negative thoughts, and those can come from our upbringing. But my mother, who is Haida, has always said that, Peter, you can become anything that you want to in your life. There's nothing that restricts you. They just did a recent study on an African classroom in the United States of America, and Malcolm Gladwell speaks about it. And what they did was that they took 2 cohorts of African Americans, and they both had the exact same math scores as when comparing with statistical analysis. Basically, the one group of African people had to just write the exam, and when they wrote this math exam, they would get the same mark that they got previously. And then they took the other cohort and they made them identify themselves as African Americans. And the people who both had the same exact math scores had a dramatic difference. The ones who identified themselves as African Americans did much worse than the ones who just got to write the exam without identifying themselves as African Americans. And I see it across my school and across our nation that as soon as we identify ourselves as Aboriginal people, we automatically think that we're second class in some circumstances. But this breaks the stereotypes as you see the people sitting here, that we are not second class, that we are capable of becoming anything that we want to in our life as we keep knowing where our traditions and our culture come from. So when I identify myself as from the Haida Nation, I don't take that lightly, because I am Haida. We are Aboriginal. We are all different from the different communities, and we are capable of doing something in society and making a change. And we can become whatever we want to in our lives, because a brain is no different than each of our brains are all the same. And when I've analyzed it, the harder that you work a brain, the better that it can become. It doesn't matter where this race is from. There is no people who have a superior brain, or there is no difference in that. They have only found that a person who works harder gets good grades. And as Aboriginal people, we have always been hard workers. From the way that we've harvested our food, the way that we traveled all the way down through the West Coast and throughout this land, that we are capable of becoming whatever we want to become. And I just wanted to make that a repetitive statement, because a lot of the opinions of people will have a dramatic effect on us. So to all the Aboriginal youth out there, don't let anybody's opinion determine your destiny in your life, because it is only their opinion. Have a strong belief in where you come from, a strong belief within yourself that you can accomplish anything with your life. A wise elder, so medical school takes a long time to get through, but a wise elder told me one time, it's not about the prize or the title at the end of the job or what journey that you're going through. It's about the lessons learned along the way. And he could not have been more correct the way he said that. It's not just a title, but it's an achievement, but it's what you become to get that title, to get that achievement. And I'm not talking about a medical doctor, I'm talking about anything in life. When you have a goal in life, it's all about what you become at the end to achieve that goal. And I wrote in the little biography that I spent much of my childhood on my home reservation in Old Mass at Hayetsk. And this is where I say that I've received my reservation education. And my reservation education gave me the fundamentals in performing in school. A lot of Aboriginal children are getting a reservation education, and they don't think that it's as high as a private school. But it is our education, and it is just as good as any other educational system. There may be some things that we have to work out, but I know that every Aboriginal child should be proud of their reservation education, because what I've been hearing from other different stories, that they think it's second class. But it's a part of who we are in our culture. It's a part of what will make us succeed in life. And it's so important to have the good teaching skills and telling Aboriginal children that they can become whatever they want to become, and that nobody's opinion will determine what they will do with their life. My teenage years were not perfect. I fell away from what I was brought up in my home. And I actually was disobeying my parents and was some sort of like a delinquent teenager going down the wrong path. I know this is on our cameras, but I was literally within the drug world of the Lower Mainland. And all of my friends who are in that world now, they've all passed away. And it was the Creator who came into my life. And I have to say that it was my faith that allowed me to get through life. Because if it wasn't for Him, I wouldn't be standing here. And He came into my life at the last, when I was drowning in a car. And I asked Him to come into my life. I said, forgive me for everything that I've done. And when He came in, just as He was saying, I had more power in my life. Instead of picking up the beer bottle, I started picking up textbook. And after each textbook, that led me to medical school. And it was His strength in me that gave me the power to get where I needed to go. And to stop all the boozing and the alcohol and all the complications that brought in my life. All of my friends have passed away now, and I would have been with them, but it was the Creator who came into my life. After completing my high school education, because it was on my graduation night that this happened, I was going to go with my friends, and we were going to do our thing in this world of drugs and alcohol. But the Creator came into my life, and I decided to apply to school. And now I'm just being honest with my story, because it is where I come from. And I went to the University of the Fraser Valley, and I started out in general studies, because I didn't have the confidence to become a doctor at that time. Yeah, it was nice to have the thoughts of wanting to become a doctor, but then you have to actually go through the process of becoming one. And it was at the University of the Fraser Valley where I was taking my kinesiology degree, and in the kinesiology degree, which is about human kinetics and some sports psychology involved within it as well, I met two people that were a part of my destiny in my life, and their name is Alan Arndt and Roger Friesen. And they seen a little Aboriginal kid in their classroom, but they seen potential. And we have so much potential as Aboriginal people that nothing can hold us back when somebody believes in us, when our elders believe in us, when our leaders from our community believe in us. when these two men spoke into my life and said, Peter, why don't you apply to medical school? It revolutionized my thinking. There's two things that will change your life, and that's the people that you meet and the books that you read. And these two men gave me a new thought, a new vision for my life, to go ahead and apply to medical school. But in order to get there, you have to apply to multiple schools. You have to write an 8-hour medical college admissions test, which one of our people in the audience has just done. And she just had an interview with UBC Medicine. So, right on. And Aboriginal people do well on this medical college admissions test. And nothing in life is too hard for us to accomplish. So I wrote the test, applied to medical school, and gladly accepted an offer from UBC, which I'm eternally grateful for. I love UBC. They were very traditional. Even in the interview, I was able to wear my hat and my regalia. I walked in, it was all brown faces on the interview panel. I was like, yes, I felt like I was totally at home. And I was able to express myself in that interview, and was able to get accepted into UBC. So it was a great honor. They have world-class teachers there. Completed my degree there now, and currently taking, and there's so many rich experiences at UBC. A lot of the training included emergency medicine, internal medicine, psychiatry, pediatrics, just to name a few of what we had to go through. A lot of it is tailored towards family medicine. Had a great experience and a rich experience working back in my home community and working in different northern communities in BC. So it gave you a good diverse background of what medicine could be like in a rural community, or what medicine could be like in an urban community like Surrey or Vancouver. And so my vision was starting to come to pass. Since I was a 5-year-old kid, I drew pictures on the brain, I wrote about the brain, and I counted every single bone in the body. I was like, it was grade 5. Counted each one, found out there was 206 bones, and started writing it all down. But there was something, there's something in society. As soon as you tell somebody you're Aboriginal, they don't believe that you can accomplish things. It's an oppression, it's an institutional racism. It's in society as soon as you say that. But we need to change that and say, I am Aboriginal, and we are the leaders of society. We've maintained this land for centuries. You come to Hayetsk, you go to the Musqueam Reserve, it looks like nobody has even lived there, like it's untouched. But we rape the land here. We just keep constantly taking away and killing it. So we are the leaders of society. If anybody else was, this whole land would be entirely raped. We'd have condos everywhere. But because we stood up for what we believe in, living off the land is who we are as people. So we are the leaders. So now I've just finished my residency interviews. My residency starts on July 1st. My future still has yet to be determined. There's the other way that you can work with the First Nations Health Authority and do family practice is what my backup plan, and not even a backup plan, but that's an option. And the other option that I chose was neurosurgery. So that's to become a brain surgeon. I don't know where my life is going to end up, but I know it's in the Creator's hands. All I know is I felt pretty good going into that neurosurgery interview because they weren't ready for an Aboriginal coming in. And then he asked me, what are you going to bring to the program? Who do you think you are? But not in that way. It was still, but I knew what he was trying to say. And I just stood there and I said, I am from the Haida Nation. We have carved totem poles. We have carved canoes. We have carved argillite, gold, silver, and brass. And we have steady hands. It's in my DNA. If they could carve a piece of wood, I guarantee you, Professor, that I could carve out somebody's brain if I have to. And they were pretty shocked at that statement. But I hope it went well. Either way, it's my dream to become a doctor. It's my dream to hold the little Aboriginal kids. They hold your stethoscope, and they know that they could do it too. And they say that I want to become a doctor. They haven't had a person on that reserve a doctor on that reserve in 30 years. And now it's changing. All the effects of residential school is starting to change. My mother went to residential school. I know all about it. I've studied almost every book on it. And that's starting to change as we're seeing our role models, as we're starting to see people rise up. And it's not about being successful in this Caucasian society. It's about being successful in who we are as people and integrity. And that's what's starting to change. And just growing up on the reserve taught me so many different things. But it also showed me something, that we do suffer from depression and from suicide. And 4 of my cousins committed suicide. And in my 4th year, Ryan Abrahams was the one where I said I had enough, where it affected me for 4 weeks while I was in medical school, because he had committed suicide. He's from the Tlingit, we're from Tlingit, Alaska as well. And so I started this shirt campaign called Love My Life. And it just has to do with Aboriginal teens loving their life. And I just shipped out some shirts to just all across the land that people are starting to pick up on it. That we need to just love ourselves. And I have a little positive affirmation on the bottom that says, look up, hold your head high, be proud of who you are, honor your life. And it's upside down so that if anybody's looking down, that they could read that positive affirmation. And because when I'm walking through all these different reserves across Indian land, I always see the Aboriginal youth looking down, and when I shake their hand, they don't look at me in the eye, which is part of our culture too, but sometimes it's because they just don't have the self-esteem. So I wanted to make that sure if they ever look down, that they're going to be reminded to look up and be proud of who they are and be proud of where they come from. And I'm selling the shirts at the back there for $20 each, and the proceeds will go to making of more shirts, and some of it goes to the Aboriginal youth centers here in Vancouver or wherever I decide to bring it. And I thank you very much for taking the time to listen to my story. And I'm not trying to brag in any way or impress you. I'm only trying to impress upon you that Aboriginal people can become whatever they want to become in their life.
Such important words that Peter has for us, and as all our storytellers do. And I just think about when I was 20 and I was unemployed living in Vancouver, and my friend said to me, "What do you want to become?" And I said, "I want to become a professor," and my friend laughed because I needed a job. And so I always kept that dream as I was going on, and I didn't end up going to graduate school to do my PhD until my oldest son went to university. So when he was 18, I was 38. And I just think we often address all of you as youth, but we all know even from the stories so far that it's a lifelong process that you begin and you keep going through. So thank you so much for your words, Peter and Crystal. Next, please join me in welcoming Gerald Bent.
I'm really nervous, so I'm gonna fumble over my words, and I'm gonna, anyways. So I want to thank the FNSA and SFU for inviting me, and acknowledge the territory that we're in. I really appreciate being invited. I don't have anything really scripted, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about what I wrote for the website for Simon Fraser University, my education story. So I'm originally from Lytton, BC. It's about 3 hours away, and I grew up there most of my life. Both my parents were forced to go to residential school at St. George's, and my aunts and uncles were also forced to go there as well. And I didn't spend a lot of time on the reserve, because my dad was working on the railroad, so we got to move around to Kamloops and Edmonton. So after a brief 2 years in Edmonton, my dad decided to move back to Lytton, so we moved back to the res, as I called it. And I didn't want to go back because I had really become accustomed to city life, and I didn't know my cousins. I didn't really remember my people, and I was losing a lot of my language and my cultural traditions that I learned from my grandmas and my grandpas and my aunties and uncles. But we moved back, and moving back, I had a really hard time in school because a lot of my own community members and non-Aboriginal community members used to say that I was stupid and that I was a dumb Indian and I was never going to amount to anything and that I wasn't going to get out of Lytton. And that really stuck in my head for a really long time. It took me a long time to overcome that because I believed that. And when you're growing up hearing that all the way until about grade 10, that's what I thought. I didn't think I was ever going to get out of Lytton, but I did. Something really fascinating happened in grade 11. The school that I went to hired an Aboriginal teacher. His name is Peter Michelle. He's from, I think he's from Chase.
Yes.
He is, yeah. And that fascinated me. I didn't think I didn't know that Aboriginal people could become teachers. So in my grade 12, Peter took all the Aboriginal students and asked us, have you thought about going to college or university? And I'm sitting there looking at him going, no, I'm probably just going to get a job at the band office and stay on the res with like everybody else. So, he told me, well, you should apply. And I said, well, I don't know what to do. And then Peter quickly looked at my grades and they were not very good. I wasn't a good student because I thought I knew it all. And it didn't matter what my mom said, didn't matter what dad said, I never listened to them. And I did what I wanted to do. I was running around on the reserve with my cousins, partying and doing things that we shouldn't have been doing, but I thought I knew it all. So I graduated, and before graduation I applied to a college and I got in, and that shocked the heck out of me. Because remember I told you, growing up I heard that I was stupid all my life and I couldn't believe I got in. And so I went and moved to Surrey, and when I enrolled in 4 courses, and I was really lonely because mom and dad weren't there, my brother wasn't there, my aunties and uncles weren't there, and I was the only brown person in that classroom. And this never fails. Everybody, all my profs would always look at me as if I knew, and if the topic was First Nations, they would always look at me and say, what do you think, Gerald? Is that true about the Mohawk people? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm from Lytton, I'm not Mohawk. I just couldn't get it, and that really bothered me. And, so I didn't do very well in my first year of college. I passed everything, but I didn't, put in a lot of effort because I was really missing home and mom, and being the only Aboriginal student, I wanted to go home. So I moved home for the summer, and come Labor Day, I finally had the courage to tell my mom and dad, I don't want to go back to school. And they were a bit disappointed, and actually they were quite angry. And so my dad said, well, you're gonna have to do something. You're gonna have to work, because you're not just gonna sit at home and watch TV. And I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. So I stayed in Lytton for about 6 more months, and then an opportunity came up at the Native Education Center. And it was a program, and I applied and I got in. And I started working at a financial institution, and stayed there for about, I can't remember, 4 or 5 years. And every summer, the bank would hire students from colleges and universities. And I would always take time to talk to them about what they were studying and what faculty they were associated with. And I would mention them, well, I did 1 year and I do think about going back. And every one of them said, you should go back. You should go back to school and finish your degree. And at that time, I was out of school for a really, really long time. And finally one day, I just really got tired of doing what I was doing. So I said, you know what, I talked to my partner, I said, I want to go back to school. And my partner supported me. So I applied and I got into Capilano University, which was called Capilano College at the time that I was there. And because I was out of school for so long, I really had to humble myself and enroll in adult basic education courses, because I couldn't write a paper worth squat. I didn't know what a thesis statement was, my writing was so bad. So I did that for about a year, and then I eventually transitioned into first year courses. And in my second year, my mom became really sick. And I wanted to be home with her. So I talked to the First Nations advisor, Peggy Shannon, and told her what was going on. And she helped me talk to my teachers. And I said, I have to go home because it's not looking good for my mom. And so I was allowed to go home for a week. I could have stayed longer, but the teachers were pretty supportive of me. And when I got home, my mom was not well. She was really about to go to the spirit world. And I took one look at her and I said, I'm going to quit school and I'm going to come home. I want to help Dad take care of you, because my dad was really upset about what was going on with my mom. And my mom looked at me and said, Gerald, you're not going to quit, because I want you to finish your degree because you have to help our people. I didn't really know what she meant by that. And I said to her, okay, it's going to hurt me to leave you, but I will go back. So I stayed a couple more days, and then I made my way back to Vancouver. And probably about a week later, my mom went home to the spirit world to be with our people. And that was the toughest, most challenging time in my life. I almost quit. I just about quit, but I think the Creator was looking out for me because I made it through that really difficult semester. So I finally finished an Associate of Arts degree at Capilano University, and then I applied to UBC and I didn't get in, and I was really pissed off. So I applied to SFU and I got in. And I was really scared because, SF being at a college as opposed to university is really different. And when I arrived, the First Nations Student Association took me under their wing, so to speak. I met Rick Ouellette, Irma Robinson, and a bunch of other grassroots members. And I signed on to work with the Aboriginal students on campus. And by that, when I arrived at SFU, I knew I wanted to become an elementary school teacher, because my mom was a First Nations language teacher when she was working. And I said I'm going to apply to the PDP program here at SFU. And that's kind of funny, and I'll tell you why, because I still had those notions in my head that I was dumb and that I wasn't going to be able to do PDP. But working with Rick and Irma and the other Aboriginal students, I started to come out of my shell more. Because I was always a student that sat at the back of the classroom, and I would go like this, and I go, oh please God, don't let Professor Deanna Reder call on me, I don't want to say anything. I was so scared, and for me to go into wanting to go into teaching, I mean, I think you see what I mean when I say that's kind of crazy. So I finally got to my third year, and I started, what did I do? I started researching in the Faculty of Anthropology and Sociology, and I researched about two-spirited people in British Columbia. And I started getting really good grades. You know, my writing improved, my class discussions, I was able to articulate sentences more, and I had a lot of ideas that I wanted to share about the two-spirited community. So I finished my BA. It was the happiest day of my life, and then I had one more year of PDP training. And I applied and I got in, and did my practicum at Thunderbird Elementary School in Vancouver. And after my training, I was hired by the Vancouver School Board, and I worked full-time, but one thing I noticed was I didn't get a lot of opportunities to work with Aboriginal kids in the downtown east side, which is what I wanted to do. And I said, this is why I got into teaching, but that wasn't happening. So I really thought about it, and I gotta tell you this too. At that time, I was going through a lot of personal things, and I turned to substances to deal with crap, as I call it. And I was at a club one night, and I went to the bathroom and I looked in the mirror, and I looked like crap. I looked awful, and I finally had, I don't know what happened, but I called a friend for help that was walking in a spiritual way, and I said, I need some help. Can you please come get me? I'm at this club downtown, and my friend came right away and took me home, and the next day he said, are you okay? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, I don't know. And my friend asked me, well, why are you doing what you're doing? And I said, I don't know. And he said, well, I think that I have something that can help you. Would you like to come to an Aboriginal ceremony with me? And I said, well, okay. I said, what do I have to do? Like, ceremony wasn't a big part of my life at that point. So I went and went to a sweat lodge ceremony, and started walking a better way than what I was walking. And it took a lot of sweat lodge and elders' teachings to let go of that, you're dumb and you're stupid and you're not going to amount to anything. So the Creator really helped me with that, and the ancestors in the fire really helped me let go of that. It still hangs around once in a while, but I don't let it control me like I did before. So, I went for about 2007. I went for coffee with a friend of mine, and this friend of mine was working at Corrections Canada, and we went out for coffee, and he said, well, how's it going? And I said, well, you know what? I don't feel like I'm really helping our people, my people, and I meant the Indigenous community. And he said, why don't you apply to Corrections Canada? And I looked at my friend and I said, are you kidding me? They're not gonna hire me. I'm an elementary school teacher. I don't know what it's like to work at a prison. I don't know what's involved in working in a prison. And my friend shared with me a little bit about what corrections was about, and I applied, and I got in. I couldn't believe it. So my first posting was at one of the federal prisons out in the valley, and I was hired as an Aboriginal liaison officer. And I had no idea what that was, really. I just knew it was working with Aboriginal, Métis, Inuit, two-spirited offenders, and didn't know what I was doing. But here's what happened on my first day. I arrived, and of course, as soon as there's a new staff member, all the inmates, they look at it and they say, oh, fresh meat, or, you know, they have all these ideas in their head that they're gonna get away with. And, but thankfully, there was 2 elders that were with me the entire time, that have been working there for quite a while. And I went to my office, and the inmates at my institution, they're allowed to walk around. It's controlled, but they're still able to move around. And I had one inmate come in my office, sit right beside me, and said, "Who are you?" And I told him my name and where I was from. And this guy started telling me his life story. And I'm sitting there, and he's sitting right across from me. And I'm thinking, aren't you supposed to be in your cell? What are you doing out of your cell? So, anyways, so he's telling me his story. And when he's telling me some of the really horrible things that he has done, I'm sitting there and my eyes are going wider and wider and wider, and I'm thinking, holy F, I can't believe you just shared that with me. And, but I didn't show that my eyes were, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And he finished his story and he said, "Well, thanks for listening." And I said, "Okay." And he walked away. And at that point, I was scared, but the elders took me out for lunch, and I honestly thought I was going to hand in my keys and say, "Get me the bleep out of here, this is not for me." But the elders, they took me out and asked how it was going, and they encouraged me to stay, and I did. So a little while later, I transitioned into what we call correctional programs. And what I basically do now is I teach substance abuse and violence prevention programs to Aboriginal, Métis, and Inuit offenders. And we really work hard at getting them to come to new conclusions about what it is that their criminal behavior is doing for them. And little did I know that I would be in a classroom with men that have done some really horrible things. And because remember I said I thought I was going to teach and work with Aboriginal kids for the rest of my life, but now I'm in a different type of classroom with a whole different group of people. So I've been with corrections about almost 5 years, but in 2011 something inside me wanted more out of life, and I didn't really know what that was. Because I had Aboriginal ceremony, I had a nice career, but I think the mental part of my medicine wheel was needing more development. So I enrolled back to Simon Fraser University, and I got in and decided that I wanted to research about Aboriginal ceremony and its effects on violent behavior for Aboriginal inmates. And that's where I am at right now, and I'm doing a bunch of criminology courses, and I hope to get into the MA program and defend work about that research topic. It's really important to me, and I know I can articulate it and defend what I present to my peers. So I think I've talked too much. So that's a little bit about me. I hope, it's all good? All my relations.
I just have to laugh about the first day of work. Because don't you remember the first day at SFU? And you're in the AQ, and you're going around and around and around, and it all looks exactly the same. So your words are really encouraging. Thank you. And from Eppinga Nation, please, is Miranda Stirling.
Right, thank you. My name is Miranda Stirling. I'm Thompson from the Lower Nicollet Band in Merritt, BC. I just wanted to first acknowledge the beautiful Coast Salish territory that we have the honor of being on tonight. Thank you. As well as thank the organizers of this very well done event, and it is my true honor to be here. Thank you so much. So my story. It's a very interesting concept to sit down and write down your story, where you've been and how you got to where you are. I think the best way to start mine is at the age of 14. And if any of you have been a 14-year-old teenager girl, or know a 14-year-old teenager girl, you know that it's hell. Their hell and everything they're going through is what they would depict as hell. So I was on a path that would be best described as destructive. I was destructive to myself, to my family, to anybody who came near me. So my parents decided that it would be best that I be sent, not away so much, but away from the junior high school that I had started at, that I gained this attitude from. So I was sent to Naquala, a band school in Douglas Lake. And I think if I was to define the biggest change in my life or move, it would be this one. Going from a public school where I could blend in, or wanted to blend in, to a school where I was put up to be a leader, to be a role model for the younger people in the school. The school was only 50 people, kids, and it was from kindergarten to grade 12, so you couldn't hide. I certainly couldn't hide. I was the oldest female. And you know, this is really where my life began. This is where my focus of being a leader, of being not afraid to stand out and to be different. It's also where I learned so much about my culture and people and the land. Every day was culture day. And you know, I loved it. And there's nothing more rewarding than being in a situation where people give you the form, the ability to lead and to do something, or the respect and the honor to stand up and do something. And each day, you know, our senior class was able to do things. We put on events, and you know, we were held accountable. I still remember, and maybe, you know, it's affected where I went, but there would be days where the receptionist wouldn't show up at the school, and I'd get called out of class to go answer phones. So, you know, it was an interesting thing, but it's because I held, you know, they knew that I was able to go and answer phones. But, you know, I always like to tell and brag to my friends who were still in public school that I was learning how to hunt and go out and find a deer and shoot it and skin it and make moccasins out of the hide. And you know, the thing though was that while I was learning how to dissect a deer, they were learning how to dissect a frog. And I thought, you know, when are you ever going to dissect a frog? Turns out that, you know, that difference in what they were learning and what I was learning was huge. And when I returned to public school in grade 11, it was astronomical. And you know, I would never have given up what I learned while I was at Naquala, but it was really hard going back to public school after literally missing 2 years of my schooling. And you know, I felt stupid. I felt like everybody had learned how to learn. You know, it's like when you show up for class like 10 minutes late and everybody's already working on something, and you're like, you know, you don't know, and nobody gave me the answers, and I kept that feeling for so long of just feeling stupid, and I learned to associate school with making me feel stupid. It didn't make me feel better, it didn't make me feel smart. All it did was highlight that I didn't know the answers, and nobody was there giving them to me. So I worked really hard for the last 2 years of my high school to graduate, but that was the goal, was to graduate and be done with it. I didn't want anything more to do with this feeling of being stupid. So when I graduated, I was done, and I was happy to graduate. I was proud to graduate. One of the few in my family that did graduate. But you know, I went on to work at Tim Hortons, and I worked my way up the Tim Hortons line, and I became the manager. And I said, "See, Mom, I don't need higher education. I'm a manager. At 22, I'm the manager." And instead of being proud of me, she used that as the opportunity to say that maybe I should go to business school then. And you know, more or less to shut her up, I went to school. Because really, there's no way to make your mom shut up. So, you can. That's the way to do it. So, I went on to take my business diploma at Langara, and I was scared. I was scared of showing up that day and being made fun of, or to realize that that feeling was going to be there again. But the best thing about college is that everybody's at different levels, and there's no set learning level, and everybody is just there together, and they didn't think I was stupid. It was wonderful, and I went on to go to Royal Roads for my Bachelor of Commerce in Entrepreneurial Management, and I was excited. I was excited the day that I graduated from Royal Roads, because it really signified the day that I stopped feeling stupid, and it was a wonderful feeling. I'm not dissing university, I'm not dissing college, but you know, if I don't know if it's what's gotten me to where I am today, but I know the confidence that I gained from my degree is where I've got, what has led to where I am today. So after graduating, I went traveling. I worked some jobs, and it was wonderful. It was this newfound focus on life, on everything. I went by the saying, I heard this wonderful quote, it's what you focus on expands. And so it was this wonderful knowledge that, just whatever you're thinking about all the time is what will create your life. And so I worked at pushing myself out of my comfort zone at every moment. And when I returned back from traveling, I was able to get a job as a temporary admin assistant at the New Relationship Trust. And I didn't know much about NRT at the time, and it was just a temporary position, but the moment that I started, I knew that this was the beginning of my career path, and I loved the organization and what they stood for, and what they did for First Nations. But I was just the admin assistant, and no one knew that I was any better than an admin assistant. And so how I tried to prove myself was that I just found answers to every question I ever heard asked. If someone was like, where's the stapler? I found that stapler. If they asked questions about like a document or how to do something on the computer and someone else said that they didn't know, I just found the answer, I just Googled it, and then went and I showed them. And so I started this thing where people came to me for answers, and that I was capable of doing something more. I've been with NRT for the last 3 years. I've held 4 different titles, and I'm now the capacity and events manager, which means the capacity part, I deal with the direct support projects, which are at a governance level, project planning for like land use plans, governance plans, economic development, and also do the scholarships. So we give away scholarships for undergrad, doctorate, masters, as well as bursaries.
Thank you.
We gave one to Peter. And we also do events. And so one of the main events that we do is called the Young Entrepreneurs Symposium. And it's for youth that we kind of put them in this setting that's like the apprentice. So we put them into teams, and then they go off and they do challenges, and they compete, and they win money, and to go towards their business plans or their schooling. It's a lot of fun, and I get to see so much energy from the youth, and from, I get to see everything. I get to see the success at the governance level, and I get to see the success at the youth level. I love my job because of it. When I was going to school at Douglas Lake, I saw a lot of anger. I saw a lot of blame, and it was hard to see, but now I get to see a lot of the happy. I get to see a lot of the success. I get to see, so much that makes me very proud to be First Nations, but it also makes me proud to say that I am. I'm fortunate. I don't have a stigma that has followed me. My feeling with schooling is a serious one, and I just spent the last 3 days at the Beyond Section 35 conference downtown, and they're talking so much about what can we do, and I really feel that education, not at this level, not at whether or not they're going to university or how they're doing at university is the problem. It's that our schools on the reserves aren't equipped at the same level as the public schools. If I graduated from Nicola at grade 12, I wouldn't have had my dogwood, which means I would have had to take a test, and I would have failed that test. And that's a problem. How can they go to school go on to university from these schools if they're set up to fail? You know, everything that I learned at Douglas Lake, at Nicola, it's tangible stuff that I love and that people can't take from me, but did it have to come at that price? I'm thankful that I, was able to go back to the public school at grade 11 so that I could accomplish graduating, because I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't gotten that. But with my job now, I'm motivated to work more in the First Nation industry. My story has just begun. I have no idea where this is going to lead, but I love New Relationship Trust, but what I love most about it is the opportunities it gives me. So I just wanted to thank everybody for being here and for listening, and I hope you have a lot of great questions for us. Thank you.
A really wonderful part about stories, as you're all thinking about your questions, is, as Crystal talks about, McDonald's, Miranda talks about Tim Hortons, I start thinking about my years at White Spot. And as you hear Peter talks about bad messages, or Gerald tells us about some words of encouragement, as they all have shared. We think about those moments of encouragement in our own lives, or moments of difficulties in our own lives. So this is your chance. I am going to start though, because I know Crystal, when she has her own interpretation of the rainstorm, that really only happened right during her talk. And I just thought I'd give her a chance to share about this.
Thank you. When I was speaking, and in my speech, I knew I was leading up to a point in my speech that talked about the community work that I had done. And this morning, a very beautiful lady had passed on. She's making her journey to the other side. And that's what was going through my head, is I knew that piece in my speech was coming along, because I know how long and hard she battled. And supervising her in my community, she was a community homemaker for a number of years. So when I heard that rain, and I paused for a minute thinking, she's come back, she's giving me a signal to regather my strength, because that's been weighing on my mind all day. And I know, from this morning when I heard the news at 11 o'clock, my previous assistant actually sent me a text knowing how close we were, and the friendship that was built with her. Every time I went home, I happened to see her at the gas station or a store in town. That when you see me step away, it was almost, I was trying to think what I was doing, and it was almost a pitcher's move that you see happen, which would happen when you step away from the mound and you're regathering your strength and your thoughts, thinking I can do better at this. And to regather, that's what went through my mind, is when you see me step away to the circle. And in slow pitch, that's what I noticed when I'm not doing very well and I really feel like I need to pull myself back together. It was the circle around, come back to the podium, and pull myself together to finish off what needed to be done, which was my sharing of my story. Thank you.